And we are live. Everyone, welcome to the Doctor of Stuff channel. I am your host, Doctor of Stuff. You can call me Doc. I always like to put out the disclaimer beforehand that everything that we discuss here, none of it should be considered as financial advice. These are just our opinions, our thoughts, and what we ourselves are personally doing. So with that, I would love to introduce my guest here, Crypto Rain. How you doing, Rain?
Good. What's going on?
I'm excited to kind of talk about some fundamentals here. It kind of blows me away that we need to do it as often as we do. But I think that there's a lot to talk about here. And so if you look at the title of the video, right, values and OMI going down, should you be concerned? And then also talking about VeVe, OMI, and the bear market. And so I've got a lot of topics that I want to talk about, but ultimately, I'm just excited to be here and excited to talk to you about that, right? And also, one of the reasons I think it was important to bring you on as a successful, not just a successful crypto investor, but a successful investor, someone who has done it in different areas, right? You've done it in real estate, and now you've done it in crypto, and really walking through some of the psychology that people are going through, influencers, hardcore community members, these type of things. So with that, let's give a shout out real quick to some of the people here in the chat. What's up, Bill? Energy. Always good to see ya. Philip, what's up, Philip? How you doing, man? SoCal Omi Homie. He's an OG Omi child, Bean Tech. Love to see you guys here. So David U seems very excited about October. Any guesses why? Well, we're going to talk about obviously some of the things that have already been announced, and it's just the beginning of October. And let's dive into that, right? So one of the first things that's happening here is New York Comic-Con, and they've already announced. So VeVe is going to be again sharing a booth with Marvel. Rain, can you talk to me about why is that potentially important? And this isn't the first time that VeVe's done that, but like, why is it important that Marvel has hitched themselves to VeVe and that they're willing to share a booth together at New York Comic-Con?
So think about how much any other project in the space would pay for that opportunity, and yet they probably couldn't get it. So sometimes we're like, oh, what's the big deal about it? It is a huge deal because the licenses that they have are gigantic. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, if the licenses they have are gigantic, why isn't the price pumping? And it's strictly because it's a bear market, and bear market, almost nothing does well. Now, every once in a while, there's some shooting star that a whole bunch of people FOMO into, and it continually pumps the price. But all the fundamentals are there, and you'd be surprised last bear market how many projects were just in this same situation, and everyone ignored them because they, like, as human beings, we want to chase green candles. We don't buy when it's low. That's like contrary to what you're supposed to do because there's no market confirmation from your 50 friends buying at the same time. In fact, 49 out of those 50 friends will be making fun of you if you buy when it's low. And somehow they think that you can buy when it's high and get rich. And it just doesn't work out that way. And so that's why so few people do it. So few people are self-assured enough to look at the factors and be like, oh my gosh, Marvel is partnering with them in a booth in some of the biggest events that there are, physical events that there are, and allowing them to share the booth. Marvel believes in the future where they're going, this idea of digital collectibles. Gosh, that's a big deal. I think the Funko Pops thing is a really, really big deal. The number of people that collect those. And if 10% of their collectors really start converting to digital collectibles in this bear market, that's a big deal. But a lot of people just want to see the price pump before they can say, oh, okay, I can believe. And by the time you get that, it's just too late. And so I didn't make it rich in crypto by waiting around till like my parents were telling me, oh yeah, I hear Bitcoin's doing really well. I made it rich by buying when it was boring like this. And when everyone else is saying, what are you doing, man? Oh my gosh, that's so stupid. Why aren't you doing real estate? real estate's up. Why aren't you buying real estate? Everyone's buying real estate. Why are you being so dumb? Why are you buying like crypto? Crypto's dead. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Thank you for saying that, because that, in my mind, just confirmed I'm right. Because the truth is, if everybody's doing it, you're in late. That's my sell signal. And so thankfully, OMI is, in my opinion, way undervalued, and the pendulum swings the other way. And so imagine as money starts pouring into Bitcoin, crypto, people start talking about crypto everywhere, and then just the prices pump. And Bitcoin's now 200,000 and OMI's now 5 cents. And you'll get all kinds of confirmation that like OMI is like, oh my gosh, it's the best ever. What? You're into OMI too? Yeah, I just bought my first $5,000 in OMI and I'm thinking of refinancing my house. And you're a smart investor and you're like, I'm probably going to sell some more. That's scaring the hell out of me now that everyone's like supposedly an expert and oh, it's great. And that should be your sell signal, not your buy signal. And this is why 95% of people lose money in any asset class, whether it's real estate investment, crypto investment, stock investment, is they chase green candles thinking that they'll just continue higher. So there is an actual psychological term. It's called recency bias. We believe that what has been, how something has been performing is how it's going to continue to perform. So if it's been going way, way up, of course it's going to keep going up is what we think. And it is deadly wrong. And if it's been going down and it's been way down for a while, we just assume that trend is going to continue. And that's a very uneducated, lazy understanding of things. And a lot of people are lazy. They expect to just be able to, oh yeah, magically know what's going on, throw a bunch of money at it. And so when the market does swing up, they will throw all kinds of money into it, which is why the pendulum swings too far the other way and things pump too high, which is what creates the massive swings and volatility that makes people like us rich by buying low, waiting till everybody's swinging into it, and then we take profits and sell. And some point, it's hard to tell when, it then crashes down. And guess what? Then people are like, oh, crypto doesn't work. Oh my gosh, crypto's a scam. No, they're just uneducated and they're bad. And they don't realize it takes skills and understanding and psychological fortitude to buy when it's boring and do the right things. And they haven't learned how to do the right things because they're just psychologically lazy or uninformed, probably uninformed. Once they start to get informed, they might then be lazy and be like, that's just too hard. But they're just uninformed.
Yeah, I like, well, there's a lot of points there. So one of the things, a comment I recently saw was, hey, if Disney and Marvel can't say VeVe, why do you think Funko would? And it's this mentality. It's this mentality that if VeVe and OMI right now aren't just to the moon, that it's a rug, that it's not going to succeed. And I think it comes from a lack of education. And that's one of the main reasons, Rain, I love your channel. And I also wanted to get on and create a channel, is just to provide some additional insights from someone that, like, my background is financial analysis, as well as kind of like the regulatory aspect of things in the financial systems, right? And so providing additional context and understanding so that people can make better informed decisions. And so what's happened is you get a lot of people in here who got in early on something, maybe made it wealthy, or they saw others get wealthy, or maybe they got a little taste of it, and they feel like they're successful and that they understand crypto because they made some money off of it. But now, because everything is down, again, everything is a rug and they don't understand it. And I just constantly see it. And that comment right there, that Funko can't save them if Marvel and Disney didn't, just shows the lack of education and understanding of business cycles and building, right? It's not about Disney and Marvel, because VeVe has that they have to be this uber successful company, which by crypto standards, they actually are. They're making money when so many projects aren't, and they're making money week after week after week, and they're growing while so many aren't, right? So they are successful. But the reason that this is so important is it's another it's another medium that they can now offer, right? Of digital, and I love what they're doing now with this. But did you see there was it's kind of caught on in Twitter where the VeVe family has been sharing this video of this YouTuber and his girlfriend, his wife, that are big Funko fans, and they kind of a little bit trashed this Iron Man Funko Gold. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. They kind of make fun of it because Funko has tried multiple times to make their Funko Golds a thing. And if you notice the Funko that we have here, this Iron Man Gold, it's different than your typical Funkos. The typical Funkos have that bigger head and kind of chibi style, right? Is art style is what it is. Whereas this Funko is more realistic, or the Funko Gold is. And so they're like most of those Funko Golds haven't panned out. You had the Snoop Dogg with the chase of the dog head that panned out. But and then once they found out that it came with this NFT, they were kind of like, oh, I don't want to know anything about it. But it was funny as they started talking about it, and they were like, "What's this VeVe thing?" And they were looking it up, and he's like, "I don't want to know." But then the wife said, "Hey, they have RoboCop," and he's like, "Wait, what? Wait, what?" And he's like, "RoboCop. Let me see this, right?" And then he couldn't. He had to figure out like what they had, and that's what I think is happening. Is it's just this slow building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just because it announced a partnership doesn't mean that the token necessarily is just going to skyrocket or these things, but they're building, and they're building towards. We need liquidity in the markets, and that's with the stock market, the real estate market, any market. You need liquidity, and right now there's not a lot of liquidity in the crypto market. Look at Bitcoin, right from its all-time high. People calling Bitcoin a rug, and it's like, oh, like no one can say Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is going down, then everything is going down, and everything's a rug. And people continue to use those buzzwords because they feel like they sound smart or intellectual. And I'm like, look, if you can provide substantial support behind the comment, I'm all ears. But just to throw that out, I just push it to the side and I ignore it, right? And I want to talk to people who are educated investors. That's why I loved on Around the Comiverse when we had Sleepin, right? And he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about this guy has built and sold multiple businesses. So
Mm-hmm.
when he looks at VeVe, that originally was a new company, right? And what they're doing, and he's looking at that, and his assessment is, hey, like I believe in this. Those are the types of assessments I really pay attention to from people who've been successful. So I hope that as you guys listen to this, why I love bringing Rain on, why I love having Around the Comiverse and talking to people who are educated and are open. Really, look, I'm not saying that VeVe or OMI is 100% guaranteed. It's not. Nothing in crypto, especially in crypto where it's so volatile, is guaranteed. But can we analyze it and come to a logical conclusion as this appears that more than likely it will succeed? And those are the types of companies and crypto tokens that I am willing to invest in. So I've got hey, SoCal Omi homie, I appreciate this. I'd love it if you guys could like, and not only just like, but share this out, retweet the tweet that I had, try to get more people in here and just ignite this conversation. And I love that he says this, ask a question. If you guys have questions as we're talking, that's what this really is about. Yes, Rain and I are having a conversation and there's certain talking points, but as we're going through that, if there's something that you guys would love us to answer, that's what we're here for. So we got, go ahead.
Don't you love the overused term rug pull, right?
Oh
They don't even understand what a rug pull is because they weren't around to learn what rug pulls really are. So like everything where the token doesn't go up to the uninformed, like is a rug pull. And it's people like that that make the US SEC's case for them, because the US SEC and the rich would love to shut out every one of those people. Why? Because they're uninformed. And what I hate about shutting the doors to all those people, yes, all these complaints go away. No longer have access to these because you haven't had access to early stage investment like this ever since the 1900s, early 1900s, because all those doors were locked behind securities laws so that you couldn't invest in early stage stuff unless you were an accredited investor. And so you didn't ever have the opportunity to invest in stuff early stage. And the reason that the government made is they said, oh, you're not informed enough, you're not intellectually capable enough. But if you have a net worth over $1 million, or you've made 200,000 a year for a number of years, well, then it's fine. So then the doors are unlocked to you, and all of a sudden, bammo, you're good enough. And what I hate about that is it's a glass ceiling. How do you ever get rich if you can't take the riskier things? But it's people like that that think they know what they're talking about. They're completely uneducated, completely uninformed, yet they have a really loud voice. And I love to see people like that argue with like Dr. Profit. Now, Dr. Profit, like the guy is a self-made like 100 millionaire. And so he's been successful. And anyone who performs at that level, it's not luck. They've learned to make better decisions. And trust me, there's probably a whole slew of bad decisions they made. But his understanding of business is 7,000 times what that person who's trying to argue with him is. And that person who's trying to argue with him thinks that like they're on an equal footing, like they're on an equal footing as in they're each people, but their business understandings are vastly different. And that other person can't even begin to comprehend that they just don't even know what they're talking about. And so like when I see somebody arguing with him on Twitter and everything, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is laughable. And it's like arguing with like a 2-year-old, right? Like the 2-year-old doesn't understand how wrong they are because they just have no comprehension of what they don't know. So all crypto is early stage venture capital investing, and those doors have been shut to you for forever. Now they're open because you're not investing in equity in the company, you're investing in the tokens, and the regulators had never shut that door because they never comprehended that door. And so the SEC is diligently trying to shut that door so that people like those running around screaming OMI's a rug pull can never invest in a token. I don't want that door shut. Now I'm in the accredited investor category. I wasn't always. Now I am. So I should want to shut that door. But I like the ability for people to have the opportunity to change their life financially by learning to be smart, by learning to take smart bets. Because what I love about early stage venture capital investing is you have an opportunity. But at first, you're going to be bad before you're good. You're not going to even know what you don't know. And most of these people arguing about crypto are new within the last 2 years. They never saw like Axie Infinity almost failing 3 or 4 times before it went several thousand X. They don't understand what like building and grinding through the bear market looks like. And then when you come out and the rains come and then it totally blossoms and does amazing, all they've known is like, oh, prices were higher, now they're low, everything's a rug pull. And they just are completely dumb and uninformed. They probably sold their positions at a loss and are just sticking around to troll people.
Yeah.
And within that environment, they are what creates the exit liquidity for the smart people. They are what creates the buying low for the smart people who are just going to counter trade people like that. So I've been adding more into OMI. I've been adding more into my crypto positions. I hope things drop even further because most everything is well within my buy zone. And when the rains come back in and everything goes crazy and people like that just disappear because they've sold their whole positions, I usually don't see them come back for quite a while because they don't want to eat crow and be like, oh my gosh, I was so wrong. And oh my gosh, I was so uneducated. And man, how many people did I talk out of their positions and how devastating is that? They just shut up. They look from the sidelines, but they don't say anything as some of those things they fudded on go 100x. And they just don't even know how to interpret it because they're just babies with this stuff. They don't have a business background. They haven't started all these different businesses. So people like Sleep in Comics gets it because they understand business development life cycle. They understand what it looks like for a new company. But for a new company in this space, to have the partnerships they do like Funko and Marvel, okay, it's in a bear market. In a bear market, what is doing well? Well, almost nothing. And if it does do well, it then kind of comes back down. Why? Because the massive money isn't coming in yet, but it will. And it will probably be in the next year to 2 years, maybe sooner. And when it does, some of these altcoins will go 20, 50, 100x, the kind of returns you can't get anywhere else. And then I'll be adding, more zeros to my bank accounts. And cool. And those other people will be nowhere.
Yeah.
But, and then later they'll still try to argue like they know what they're talking about. And
From
I'll say,
from
well, yeah,
from
here's
their
a
mom's
picture of my
house,
beach
you
house.
know.
Didn't we talk like 3 years ago? Like,
Yeah.
how you doing financially? You doing well?
Yeah. I just struggle to take anyone serious that says that they're uber successful and that they created all these businesses and they're still living in their mom's basement. And I mean that's a real thing. Some people out there they're doing that, and yet they're great at being a sensationalist and drawing people in with clickbait titles and whatever. And they can be great performers, but trying to truly listen to people who've been successful in that space. So when you talk about people arguing with Dr. Profit, and I've seen people that tweet out and with this badge of honor like Dr. Profit blocked me. It's like, you know why? Because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm not going to argue with these people. I'm not going to spend the time to educate them. If they don't get it, it's not worth my time, And so if they want to sit there and take it as a badge of honor, I would start asking yourself and be like, okay, so here's someone who's extremely successful. I'm trying to argue a point, and basically like he's just blocked me. Is my point not sufficient enough, right? Because I've seen where Dr. Profit has gone in and discussed something with someone or debated with someone because they're trying to make an actual logical argument, right? And there you can have agreement or agree to disagree on certain things, but those people who wear this as a badge of honor, I'm also like, look, I'm just going to mute you, right? You need to block out a lot of the noise. And everyone is going to be different. Everyone's at a different stage in their understanding of crypto, understanding these projects. But let me give you a perfect example of a rug and when you should use a rug, right? Not because Ecomi took down all of their previous videos on their YouTube and now they're updating it with more relevant information, right? Like that was called a rug. No, this is a rug. Okay. I did pre-seed investment in a company that had the privacy narrative, and they were building, the bear market hit and they kind of disappeared and people started flooding their project. They were freaking out. They're like, why aren't you talking? What are you guys up to? And then they just minted out of thin air additional tokens and sold them and tanked the price of the token and then closed shop. That, my friends, is a rug. Okay. VeVe is still building. They're at New York Comic Con with Marvel and with that Funko YouTuber. It was funny because he's like, oh, they're trying to make these Funko Golds a thing by partnering with Marvel, and yet they couldn't stop talking about the partnership with Marvel.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's working. It's working at this point. And look, there's so many people who still don't understand digital, don't understand what NFTs are, or they think the NFTs are bad, and it's a lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is. And over time, it's the same thing with the internet. You had major news channels calling the internet a fad. Why would we need the internet? What are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this digital collectible? I can just look at it. Well, why can't I just take a picture, right? There's a lack of understanding of the technology behind it. And that's what I've seen. And history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so when I'm seeing a lot of these similar things that are happening, that's how I feel through my analysis, that I feel like I'm on the right track here. And that VeVe with this is very interesting too, this Louboutin, I'm probably saying that wrong, but the Marvel Louboutin VeVe collaboration with this is another kind of designer brand that's coming in, right? Like we had Givenchy, but that was just a post. But now we're actually having some clothing items with these the sea the sea enchantress, boots and things. And I just love to see it. And not necessarily that it's going to pump VeVe or the token, but over time, as they continue to just cement themselves right in the history books as we are here, we've been here since the beginning, and we've established all of these partnerships as the technology comes with AR and VR, and people start understanding that the younger generation grows up who've been used to digital, right? Like my daughter, she like at a very early, I've got pictures of her when she was 2 and she's got her phone and this little purse, and she could operate, and my son can operate an iPad right now. He knows how to turn it on. He knows the passcode. He can do these things, and he's young. These kids are growing up and they understand the digital thing. And right now, my son will not stop asking me about Oscar the Grouch. And he just keeps saying, he's like, hey, knock it off, Scram, knock it off, Scram. And he just keeps repeating this answer to the grouch, and he keeps asking me for it. And anytime that I see where kids can't stop thinking about it, I feel like we're onto something. And that's where it is with VeVe, and they continue to do these partnerships. So New York Comic Con with Marvel and all of the announcements, and why David Yu is excited is I think that we're going to get some additional announcements that are going to be big, and maybe not big in terms of pumping the price of our vaults or the value of the token, but in these people are hitching themselves to VeVe, their name and their brand, and they're saying we feel comfortable enough to tie ourselves to that. That is a big deal. So let's go to these comments real quick. Sourdy, I can't tell you how much I want to go. Like, the FOMO is so real, but this is a family trip that I'd had planned for quite some time, where we're hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains. So I am so bummed that we can't make it. But hey, thanks, Vivi Puski. Let's see. I agree. So they need exposure to new users, and that's a very important point, right? It's people need constant touch points. I remember you kept telling me about crypto for years, Rain, for years. And I wouldn't listen. And when you talk about those people who are like, yeah, you do your thing, I was one of those people. And it was because I wasn't educated on it. And I wasn't willing at the time to spend the time to get educated on it. But once I did, man, I was in. And I think that a lot of people, it's going to take some of these bigger brands and this constant exposure, educating people about what this is and the possibilities that are there. And that's why it's so important what we're seeing here. It's just, Omi Child, I hope you were able to find the next exit and get there safe. Appreciate the comments. This is a perfect example, like right here. Literally, some of the things that people are saying, like, oh, because Orbis Technologies took blockchain out of their name, this is a rug, right? Or VeVe sold some of its OMI. They no longer believe in the project. Tim Cook, he sold some of his Apple shares. He no longer believes in Apple. Apple's a rug. Like, does that make sense? No one is saying that in the stock market, and yet people continue to say that in crypto, in this space, because of a lack of education, and it's laughable. It's just laughable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, Pixel Trader made a good point, right? That it was funny.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to bring back your epic house parties during the next bull market?
Probably. So I haven't bought an epic house yet. That'll be coming this next bull market. I just didn't want to do it too early and have too much of what I had grown put into a house that at best might double if I'm really, really lucky, versus what it could have been in crypto. But this next time I'll probably make some lifestyle upgrades that I waited on. And by probably, I would say high. The probability is very high.
Let's go.
And part of the reason is that is what gets people's attention, right? So I just couldn't justify it early enough. Yes, I could have bought multiple Lamborghinis, could have had a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, all kinds of things. And I then would have had very little still to invest in things. If I'd gotten a nice house and a bunch of Lamborghinis and Ferraris, that would have been dumb. But my goal is to grow a net worth where a Lamborghini is like nothing in the grand scheme of things. And at that point, it doesn't make sense not to have some, because sometimes people need to see that in order to open their eyes and open their ears and listen. It's weird that as human beings, we need to be able to see that, but we need to. So
look, I'm guilty of that. When it caught my attention when you just said, hey, I made millions this last crypto run going to these tokens that I was telling you about. And I was like, all right, we need to have a longer conversation here, because I had just looked at the token price is all right. And it would go up and it would go down. And I was like, oh, it's so volatile. And again, I just hadn't done the research, and it is true. But here's the caveat I want to add to that, is that people will say, okay, this person's made lots of money, so they must know what they're talking about. But I think it's important to listen to them and say, okay, did they get lucky, or or do they really know what they're talking about and listening, right? And that's where I say the difference between someone like you and BitBoy Crypto. When I listened to BitBoy Crypto and all these tokens that he shilled that were just garbage, that had no use case, and then we find out that really he was just getting paid in the tokens. He was pumping and dumping on his listeners, as opposed to, hey, here are the projects that I think could be successful. There's no guarantee. This is just what I'm doing, and here's why I'm doing it. Right? That level of education and sophistication in investing, that's what I'm looking for, and that's where I say this is the type of recipe that someone might have to be successful long term. And that's what I want to educate myself on. And I'm still putting on my big boy pants. I'll listen to it. Maybe I agree or don't agree with you or with anyone, right? And everyone should be doing that because everyone's financial situation is different and they're at different points in their lives with the type of risk that they feel comfortable taking. But it's so important to educate yourself on that. So, and speaking of education, right? People, like Slider says, if they don't know the platform exists, they can't buy it. And there's such a large percentage of the population right now that has no idea about digital collecting. And that's what's one of the things that makes me bullish is there's all of these catalysts that could happen. Not that they will, but if they do, here's the success, right? And with, for example, Amazon, it was like if people start using the internet to purchase things, and if Amazon starts offering more things than just college textbooks, and if they can build out the infrastructure to ship that, right? There's all of these ifs that Amazon had to meet for them to be successful. And that was a big risk. But over time, as you started to see them build that out, it became less and less of a risk, even though Amazon wasn't making money at the time, right? And that stock was there. The people who believed in it and they were saying, hey, this infrastructure is there and we see what they're doing and we feel confident enough that yes, it is a risk, but we're going to invest. Those are the ones who made the most money from it. So let's see. And this is true, right? So like we kind of talked about with Sleeping Comics on Around the VeVeVerse, if all of these catalysts come and nothing happens, right? So we get the VeVeVerse, we get multiple exchanges, we get more utility. The team has built this out. The AR and VR tech is there, and VeVe still really hasn't started to gain traction or momentum, and the token hasn't done anything in the bull market. Yeah, I'm going to be concerned, and I'll be one of the first people to point that out and say, "Hey guys, look, I'm seeing these things." It's funny because so many times people are like, "Oh, Dr. Profit, Randy, all of these people, they're so heavily invested that they can't afford to FUD the project." And that's so wrong. For me, I look at it and they're saying, hey, we wanted this to succeed. Of course, they want it to succeed. They see the potential in it. But at some point, people sell out, right? If they're like, look, like this just is not going the way it is. And I'll be one of the first people to say, hey, I don't think that this is going the way I thought it was going to. And here's why. Here's what's changed from my initial thesis and just talking about that. So that's a great point. But right now there's a lot of catalysts ahead. And all I continue to see is VeVe building in a bear market. So
Bill Gardner stacking up on that OMI, which is awesome. I've just bought some more too, and I'm hoping there's a big liquidity event that I might have in the coming month. And if that goes well, depending on how that goes, so I'll get money free that's been essentially locked up for a couple of years in an early pre-sale. And so if that goes well, I'll be able to buy, even some more OMI. I hope OMI's price stays around where it is. I love it. It's one of my favorite deals during this bear market. It doesn't have the potential multipliers of some of the riskier stuff that I'm in, but the risk versus reward profile on OMI, I really, really like. And it's thanks to people that just don't know what they're talking about, that aren't stocking up on OMI. And as much as like I try to help them understand it, sometimes they want me to say there's some kind of guarantee, and there are no guarantees. Yeah. As an investor, I'm just playing the odds, and I'm trying to take odds where I feel like at least there's a 50-50 chance that I'll be right. I try to take ones where I feel like 80% chance that I'll be right. And if I'm right, it won't just double my money. It might 5x, 10x, 100x my money. And if I'm wrong, well, then I lose it, or I lose most of it. That's cool. And with those kind of odds and those kind of numbers, this is why you can make so much money in crypto. But a lot of people do it all wrong. They don't realize that 70% of the crypto space is some kind of like just bad crypto project or scam. And then 30% is like legitimate businesses. And out of those, they don't know how to look through that 30% and find what might do well. Now, when I was brand new in crypto, I put half my money in that 70% that was like ultra risky and really kind of speculative, like meme coins and other things like that. And most of all of that went to zero. And I put half in the other side. And what I learned about the other side is that there's higher predictability if you're looking at substantive projects rather than some meme coin or some other thing, which it's not that those can't do well, they can, but the predictability is very, very low. You kind of have to get lucky. And I don't like you kind of have to get lucky in order to make money because it's not repeatable. So I spend all my time in the crypto projects where like I really like the team, what they're working on makes sense, the tokenomics behind it makes sense, because a lot of that is like you can research and there's more predictability. So you can take your chances of winning and increase them through research. And so that I feel like I don't spend any time in that total gambling space of crypto where XYZ meme coin is coming out. Let's just say it's AI meme coin. Yay, it might do well. And you know, they're trying hard to reach Elon Musk. And if they do, it'll go fantastic. What are the chances of that? And they're right. If Elon Musk tweets it out, it will do fantastic. But that if is how much control do they have over that if, and what's the predictability there? Extremely low predictability, extremely low chances. So I spend no time on that stuff. So any of the meme coins, I spend no time on that. I spend 100% on like real businesses, whether they're DeFi or they're blockchain gaming, which is one of my favorite narratives. And then this idea of digital collectibles is transformative. I really think in 30 years, digital collectible is going to be like 95% of what people are doing because you don't have to worry about storing them. There will be marketplaces you can sell them instantly. You'll be able to show them off through your social medias in different ways. And so your ability to flex them, which is why people buy fine art. They look at it sometimes, but it's a lot of it's a social flex. And so it's got the properties that people are interested in, but an easier way, there will be better ways that you can even share it and have other people interact with it. And so I just think, just like Bitcoin is superior to gold as a store of value, I think digital collectibles are superior to the physical collectibles, which you have to hope your house doesn't burn down. You have to hope that like there's not some kind of flood that gets all your nice comics wet, you know, hopefully they were like locked up in an airtight case and don't get washed away if there's a flood and all these other problems that could happen with physical ones, or you ship it to somebody and it never shows up. And then there's an insurance claim and just all these problems with the physical side that in the digital side, you can sell them instantaneously. If you lose your phone, well, just as long as you have your login and you can get in through your login, now you can get hacked and there's risk there. But the loss, the ability to lose it isn't quite the same. The ability to transfer it to somewhere else, anywhere else in the world, means that you'll have a bigger marketplace. So if you're collecting physical comics, your marketplace is mostly the US and Canada. And those that like comics within the US and Canada. But over time, as this idea of physical collectibles or digital collectibles catches on, I think you'll have people that have seen the Marvel movies in all these different countries that'll want the digital collectibles, and it will become a social flex. And so then you're going to have a huge pool of buyers, and you're going to have millionaires in all these different countries that want those kind of social flexes. And that's what I like about it, why I think the risks are good, and I'm willing to put so much money into VeVe and the OMI token, because I like the way those risks add up. And some people say you're crazy. Well, people told me I was crazy in 2019 when I put $4,100 in land in a little game called Axie Infinity, being built by 4 people. I think they're from the US, but they were in Vietnam at the time. They were all like under 22 years old. And so for a blockchain game that hadn't even been built yet, and here I was buying potential land in it. And then they thought I was a genius when it went to 400,000, and then when it went to like 12 million. And it's like, well, I just took a chance. And I felt like that chance was far riskier than the chance I'm taking with the OMI token. Though it did work out. It worked out quite well. I sold it 400,000. I wish I could have seen how high it'd go. I would have preferred 12 million, but I can't complain about 100x. So OMI, it's like, yes, there's risks. It could fail. I don't see any legitimate reason at this point why it's going to fail in the next 2 years, barring World War III and EMP strikes all across the world, because then people are worried about food and they're not concerned about social flexes at that point. But at that point, most of the money you have is worthless anyway, too. So you got to just roll the dice as if that's not going to happen. And if it does, then it does. But, you know, then we have bigger problems to worry about.
Yeah. So here's this question. JP says, is storing all your OMI on VeVe a safe play? I'm relatively new to crypto. I'm not sure where to store it. Jay, I would say this. Having anyone custody your crypto is a risk. So I don't know the protocols or safety protocols that VeVe has in play. If they get hacked or you know, what could happen when you're storing it in that wallet there. So is there risk there? Yes. Now, that being said, I have some of my OMI over on the VeVe app. So that's all I can say there. But everyone has different risk tolerances. But absolutely, it's a risk. It's a risk to have it on a centralized exchange. It's a risk to have it in your non-custodial wallet because you could lose your seed phrase or give up your seed phrase, right? There's risks everywhere. So for me, I do have some of my OMI out on the VeVe app, but not all of it. So hope that helps. Yeah, Slider, kind of catching up with some of these comments when people were talking about the internet, or, you know, why would I need email? I have regular mail, and how different it's been. And it really is just that mindset that people don't see it until it's been there for years. And then there's this, I'm trying to remember the quote, maybe Rain, you can help me with it, but it's like success come like long term, and then all of a sudden, where someone's been working for years and nothing happens, and then all of a sudden it happens in, you know, like a year or less, and people are like, oh, like they were just an instant success. And it's like, no, they didn't see that build. And that's what I see with VeVe is at some point I do believe that VeVe will become mainstream and everyone will be talking about VeVe, and they're like, oh, they came out of nowhere. And it's like, no, really, they've been building for quite some time, but digital collecting just wasn't a thing until it was a thing. You got Stardust Run, who's an OG. Sorry, I'm going to go through some more of these comments to kind of catch up, but yeah.
A couple of ways they say it is, the way I think about it is slowly then suddenly, but another way they say it is like an overnight success, 7 years in the making.
Yeah.
Because like that's just how it happens, slowly and then suddenly, right? So right now it feels like slowly, it feels like molasses, and be grateful for this period, because for me, I am anyway. You can choose to make whatever decisions you want. I am grateful that it hasn't pumped tremendously yet. Number one, if it pumped so early, it wouldn't go as high. And secondly, I like buying low. So stay low for like 6 more months. You know, stay low for another 12 months. That's fine, as long as they keep doing these business things. And we've seen them fix some things that I was concerned about. I had concerns a year ago that their improvements to VeVe weren't, their development life cycle was taking too long, that there were some tech issues. They didn't have their systems down for improving the VeVe app in a reasonable time. And that was starting to concern me. Everything was soon, and never getting done. Like almost nothing was getting done for the longest time. And that was really concerning. And yes, they should have started on doing that sooner, but every business, they're run by people, and sometimes people make priority mistakes. They have gazillion different priorities to balance through, and they should have, in hindsight, prioritized hiring some great tech people sooner. But who knows, maybe the priorities that they took care of would have actually caused a bigger problem had they not focused on those. So we're just kind of complaining, after the fact that took so long. But I feel like they put it on the priority list. They took care of it. They have a much better tech development team. Their development life cycle is totally within acceptable realms for me now. And they just continue to improve it, and they are able to roll out these things like burning mechanisms. We now have the wait list where you randomly can get chosen, which helps with bots.
Mm-hmm.
It also like tries to help make things more fair. Cool. So great. They made a lot of things, and in order to be able to use the bronze tickets, they had to develop that. So like everything's coming along. And so people want results now, and they want it to happen now, and they just don't realize that this takes patience. It feels like it's been forever, but it hasn't. It just feels like it has. In real estate, from the bottom of the market to the top is sometimes 12 years. So I learned to be patient. And so I'm as excited as can be that crypto from the bottom to the top is often like 2 years apart is all instead of 12. And so for me, it's like really, really short, but that doesn't mean the 2 years doesn't feel like a long time. It feels like a long, long time. It feels longer than 2 years, but it really is only 2 years.
Yep. So I had to chuckle at this comment that Mark said about just telling my family the Smoky Mountains kind of look like New York City. And be like, oh no, we're here. We're at the Smoky Mountains. Times Square, that's part of Smoky Mountains. Don't worry about it. It's just, I love that. So how easy will it be to implement OMI purchases on the web app? Look, I'm not a dev, but I do think it will take some working, because there are third parties out there that, like MoonPay, that you use your credit card and you can purchase crypto. But the problem is that to use it in the web app, it has to be layer 2. So there has to be a bridge done. So I don't know how they're going to do that, right? If they like through MoonPay is going to create or use Ecomi's bridge, or whoever's built that bridge, to then reach out, buy the layer 1, bridge it, and then convert. So I do think that there's some mechanism there that are going to take a little bit of time. But for me, James, that is one of the, once that happens, and we have like things like bronze tickets and the ability to use the OMI in the app, those two things I think will be very, very impactful on the token through burns and just the use case of it, where people will say, now I want to buy it, and it's easy to buy. And that ease is so important for liquidity. So Harris, I have to shout out Harris. It's so funny. He's very observant. I mean, obviously, I think that my garb today is quite different than I normally am with my hoodie, my Boston hoodie or something. But yeah, I had an interview. Well, it was like a podcast that I had done, and so I was dressed up a little bit more for that, and then had to get things all set up. So didn't have a lot of time, but hey, it's nice to look dapper. I mean, I had to match rain at least once in a while, it's just like a baller. But yeah, I kind of was last minute thing, getting everything ready before I had to start streaming there. Johnny McGovern says 10x will do me safe. Bet it can do that. Ecomi is about only about a 12x from the all-time high. And that's the point, is you got to ask yourself, do you think that OMI long-term has the potential of getting recognized during the next bull run, if there is a bull run? And for me, the answer is yes. And so I think that for me is something I believe can happen. Slider says one thing he's learned investing in the stock market is finding innovative technology that solves a problem and has good fundamentals. It will give you a good base to start from, and it's still not a guarantee. That's true. There's some projects that I was like, man, this is such a strong use case. It solves a problem, but you also have to have the right team, and they have to have the right funding, and they have to understand business and marketing. Like there's a lot that goes into that. So nothing is for sure. Look, okay, so when we're talking about shipping things, Rain, you talked about digital collecting and being able to access a wider worldwide market. I'm trying to learn Disney Lorcana so that I can play that with my daughter. So I've been buying the cards and things, and I landed this Enchanted Elsa Lorcana, and it was going for about $900. Now on eBay, it's going for about 700, 750. So I sold it, and now it's just like, man, it's such a pain. I've got to wrap it up. I've got to protect it. I had to look up what's the best way to protect it. Then I'm sending it to like an authenticator who will then send it to that person, because they have to be able to understand the provenance and validate that it's actually what I say it is, right? So there's all of these risks and problems along the way, whereas the blockchain kind of solves a lot of those issues, right? And so I can buy this digital collectible. I know that it's authorized IP from Marvel, and that it works, and it can be instantaneous, that transfer. So I love, those are some of the problems that VeVe solves, right? This is something I think it's important to talk about too. When like the Red Hulk, there's all this speculation that happens, and I've seen it time and time again. And I fell for it the first couple of times, especially with Thanos. I said fell for it, but like I knew that Thanos were probably going to drop in price, but I just wanted it airdrop to me. I wanted to be the first person to own that. But there's a lot of speculation that goes into things, in these price pumps, and then the airdrop happens and everything tanks. And I think that at one point the Red Hulk, it was at 180, now it's 40, and it's almost like you can buy the whole set of all of the Hulks for the same price that you could have bought just that Red Hulk at 180. So that is something to look at if you're really trying to speculate on the market. We don't have the liquidity in general right now for most things to truly pump or to build. So that's something to take into consideration when you're speculating on how things are going to pan out for some of these collectibles. Rain, what kind of profit zones would you consider? See, this is a difficult question, because people have different entry points as to when they purchased OMI and when they feel comfortable. But if you could talk about, and I think this is a great time to, let's see, did someone say, hey, oh, what's up, Sleeping? Sleeping, we've been talking about you quite a bit here throughout, but do you want to go into a technical analysis of kind of the OMI token, like what's happening there, right? And talk about your thoughts on buy zones from where whether it's a dollar cost average, where your base is for that DCA, or where you bought in at different points, and then what you would feel comfortable with and saying, hey, like, I plan on taking profits at this point and this point and this point.
Yeah, so anything under 0.1 cents. So I refer to it in the number of cents. So that I have to say 0.0001 or 3 zeros and 1. I just say 0.1 cents. Anything below 0.1 cents is a pretty good price. And so right now we're below that by about 20% or so, or 12%. As far as potential sell prices, I'm not going to be selling any till probably 2 cents and above. And I know that seems like a long ways away. It's just, for me, like, I think it can easily hit those prices. So yes, that's above the previous all-time high, and that seems high. And maybe I will. It's hard for me to say this early how exactly at what points I'll take profits. I would like to not have to take profits at all if Bumper, one of the projects I'm familiar with and followed for a long time, if they would find a way to be able to bumper the OMI token, then I would actually just, when the market goes crazy, I would just insure the positions, or I would bumper the positions. And so then if it reversed on me, then I could cash it in at a certain number. But I don't think they'll be bumpering OMI by the time it probably happens. And so I'll have to actually take profits and take exit zones. So probably that starts about 2 cents for me. And that would probably just be 5 or 10% of what I have, and then take profits all on the way. But at 2 cents, selling 5% of what I have more than like puts me very much in the black. And then, I don't know where the top's going to be for OMI. I have some predictions, but they're just guesses. I don't know for sure where it's going to be. It could be 5 cents, could be $5. It depends on how much steam comes in, how much people FOMO in. It does have a narrative that can get a lot of big people talking about it all the time. And if that's the case and that happens, then the OMI token could go to numbers it probably should never hit, and yet it will, right? Should Bored Apes have gone to like a $300 and some $1,000 floor? No, it shouldn't have happened, and yet it did. So when people say, oh, like a $5 OMI, it can't ever happen, it can. Should it? No. Will it? Well, will it is a different question. It might. Depends on how crazy it gets and how bad the FOMO gets, as to whether it will or not. And it's got a narrative that can really catch on fire if a lot of people really start collecting their things, and a lot of big people like Logan Paul and other people are like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest collectible, and they're releasing 20 videos on how they just bought more VeVe this and that and this. Then everybody else starts FOMOing in and covering it, and then like half the social media world is covering VeVe collectibles. At that point, the VeVe collectibles go crazy and OMI goes crazy. The prices it should never hit, but then it would. And so I don't have a magic crystal ball to know if it plays out that way. It's got a narrative that's strong enough that it could. Will it? I don't know. Like Axie Infinity had a narrative that was like, if this catches on, it could do really, really well. And I wasn't wrong on that. Where I was wrong was I didn't even imagine how well it could do, right? So the land that I was buying for $70 for a Mystic plot went to, if it touched a road, it went to $120,000 from $70. And if it didn't touch a road, then it went to $70,000 from $70. So it went 1,000x if it didn't even touch a road or wasn't real close to one. And then all the way up to 120,000 if it was touching a road. And should that have happened? Well, should doesn't matter. It did happen. And so, yeah, it's a crazy wild ride that sometimes things happen that shouldn't happen. Tesla shouldn't have gone 7x in 1 year, yet it did, because FOMO is real and people chase green candles. They also dump red candles, and we're seeing a ton of that. And so some people get all scared and worried. And me, I'm like, okay, well, gosh, been trying to help people see not to do that, but it's still happening. And they think they know more than me. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong this time. I just don't think I am. And I'm not going to take their bets.
Yeah. I love Mark's comment about let's keep things away from Logan Paul. We don't need him for this. Yeah, I mean, like he's brought a lot of negative attention, but like sometimes like people just thrive on that. But what I'd really love to see at some point, right, is man, imagine. I mean, at one point Neymar had a Bored Ape. Imagine if Neymar was out there with his Spider-Man Secret Rare doing a video on that, right, and saying, "Oh man, I'm having so much fun playing with these VeVe digital collectibles or something." That's the type of thing that if that happened, right, then VeVe collectibles could go crazy, and then people would look at, okay, what token's tied to that? Is there a token tied to that? Oh, that could go crazy, right? So there's a lot of different narratives here. So I there's another thing too. Well, so first of all, shout out to Stardust Run. I am not the comics guy, like feeling undervalued. We had Sleeping Comics like on the Brown Comiverse. One of the ones that he talked about was, man, it's Marvel preview something, but it's the first appearance of Star-Lord. He talked about that, and he thought that was great. There was another one who done this analysis of comparing VeVe comic books to the real world value of comics and ones that was undervalued. And I believe it was Amazing Spider-Man number 129, which is the first appearance of the Punisher. But I haven't done that. I have been trying to buy just first appearances. I think a lot of these right now, a lot of the values are down pretty significantly from where they were. And so I'm saying, hey, this is my range. I'm buying that. With SoCal Omi Homie, with Omi or collectibles, I'm trying to stack more Omi than collectibles right now. For a long time, I bought Omi at like 008. And I've dollar cost average, and I bought a lot more this year as it's been in the 000s. But I'd sold quite a bit of things, collectibles, when they pumped, and then I was buying other collectibles and kind of rolling those profits into collectibles that were still at higher prices. But so the value of my vault, or the money that had been put in the vault, is higher. But I'm definitely focusing on Omi right now, because I just feel like if that hits the narrative, my VeVe play is like a longer term. I think just longer term, it's going to take time for that to really, really establish itself. But in a bull run, I do believe that Omi could run a lot quicker than the collectibles. But they could go in tandem, where if the Omi token price pumps, then people are taking some of those and they're buying some more of the collectibles. They're taking profits and buying more collectibles, so then that could pump, right? But I do think that OMI will probably pump first if it pumps at all. And so I am adding more OMI there. And I like Mark's comment here that people don't realize that even if it takes VeVe 6 years to hit 1 cent again, that outperforms the S&P 500, right? And the gains that you can get over 6 years of compounding interest with that. So well taken there. Yep. And look, bump is going lower, and it could go lower, and that's the thing. But it's really looking at the use case of it and saying, if this works, when we got the Bitcoin halving right around the corner, we've got the accounting changing. Basically, it's already changed for Bitcoin and corporations holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. We've got the Bitcoin spot ETFs, which are going to get approved at some point. All of those things. And then these massive companies are going in and saying, how can we mitigate some of the risk of the volatility of this token? Oh, look, let's look at this bump token. And they're going to be paying analysts. That's all they do is analyze things. And they're going to say, analyze this project, analyze this token. Let's do a test case. Let's see if it makes sense. And bam, if this really, really works, we're going to buy a load of this token so that we can use that to hedge our, the volatility of these tokens. Man, it's got a strong use case. Again, still no guarantee. So a lot of the things that I do, I don't look at the price of a lot of the projects or these tokens that I buy into right now. I don't care what the day-to-day thing is, because I invest in it. I'm trying to purchase the tokens that I think that in the medium to longer term are going to do well if they get adopted. So yeah, like if Bumper's down, I'm like, I own Bumper, but I'm like, okay. And it's making those decisions of where do I want to put the, more money right now. And sometimes I kind of split it and say, well, I'm going to buy more of this. I'm going to buy more of this and more of this. But OMI is definitely one of those. So Season 3 OG says technicals are important. Did you want to go over a technical analysis right now of the OMI token and what's happening? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can pull that up.
Okay, well, I'll go through some of these comments while you're pulling it up if you want. Let's see. Well, DC and the bump every time it drops 30%. Yeah, around the VeVeVerse 41 Stardust is where Sleepin was on, and it was great. I watched a lot of Sleepin videos, so just be able to talk to him and ask him some questions, and learn from his experience. That was a great episode. That's another great point, Mark, is that 8.5% fee for Marvel Disney and the 10% cash out. There is additional risks of just the cost of doing business on the VeVe platform right now. And hopefully once you get OMI and they implement some of the utility there of being a master collector or using OMI, that some of those fees get reduced. But at the same token, OMI on ETH, if there's a bull market and ETH gets really clogged, I'm telling you right now, the gas fees for transactions on ETH can be mind-numbingly high. That it's super frustrating. So, but I think that people will look at that and we'll go back and forth. What's up, Luke? Good to see you. And first, I got to say to everyone, thank you so much for everyone who's watching and making comments. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications button. Also subscribe to Crypto Rain's channel if you haven't. And he also has a Discord where he releases a lot of alpha and interviews that he does with CEOs and high-profile people that he doesn't publicize. So there's the public interview, and then he brings it into his Discord, who have the what's that called? The subscription.
Yeah, Patreon. So
Patreon,
you have to join the Patreon to get access to the private Discord.
So here we go. You're good to go on this.
Perfect. So a lot of the major tools that I find helpful. So I'm not a day-to-day trader. And at first I thought, I want to learn how to be a day-to-day trader because, then I could make more money. And what I learned is most day-to-day traders, they make far, far less than just smart swing traders. And that's where the money is. I know somebody just by taking highly researched positions and holding them from the bear market into the bull market, over 2 cycles, he made $1 billion. I don't know any swing traders or any day traders that have made anywhere near that kind of money. So the real money is in thoughtful, smart research positions while they're down and holding them till they do well or till it's clear that the failure is imminent. And so that's the path that I took. And so we don't have the full history of Comey here. So it did go all the way to 1.4 cents. But when they switched over to Immutable X from GoChain, the trading view chart doesn't reflect it. So realize that there was this higher high that went all the way to here and went down. And we see that it's retraced all the way down to this bottom. So what I did was took the fib retracement from this bottom all the way up to its previous high, which is about 1.4 cents. So what that gives us is at some point, likely, it's going to come back up. It's going to come back up to its previous high, and then it's going to bounce down a little bit, and then it will probably shoot up above it. And how high is what we all want to know. Well, it's amazing how often things fall within these Fibonacci extension and retracement numbers. So this suggests that extension level 1 is at 3 cents, extension level 2 is at 3.5 cents, and extension level 3 is at 6.2 cents. Now, sometimes it vastly exceeds that, and sometimes it doesn't hit. Like maybe it hits fib extension 1, or sometimes if things go bad in a company, they never hit this. So it's not completely accurate. But what I see bigger on the charts, what I'm looking at is what's called an inverse head and shoulders. So it's come all the way down like this, formed this shoulder. Here's like the little head area, probably some kind of shoulder here. Notice it is a higher low than here. And then usually it's ready to go off, and it will probably struggle around this area, the 0.18 cents range, and play around. And then probably it'll be off to the races, and it'll hit this area and come back down, and then it might be ready for some more run up to its previous high. And that's likely how it'll play out. Now, will it play out exactly like that? Well, the chances are really slim that it will play out exactly like this. But that's generally how it plays out from the bear market into the bull market. So what we're waiting for is just the bull market, when money starts coming in and it starts getting thrown at everything, especially things that have good narratives. And it's amazing how many people come in because people chase green candles. So you saw Tesla, a stock. So a stock doing 30% in a year is amazing. And like people get super excited and they're like, oh my gosh, 30%. And Tesla went 7x. Do you know how rare that is for a stock? Like that never happens in stocks. And that just comes because people chase green candles, and all of a sudden they're getting informed and they're asking everybody more about Tesla. And you'll see that happen as money comes into the crypto market. And there'll be a bunch of people that's like, dang it, I knew I should have taken this serious sooner. And so things will have already gone up 10 or 20 or 30x from the bottom. And these people will be throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars or maybe millions of dollars in effort to try to catch up. And it pushes the market further and faster, which is what creates the nice blow off top that often happens. And so that's what I'm just preparing for. Do I know what's going to happen with OMI? No, I give it an 80%, maybe even 90% chance it happens, which even in those cases, 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 times, something fails and it doesn't go that way. That's okay. Maybe I'm wrong on my guess. That's just my guess for my own portfolio, not for yours. You got to determine for yourself what you think the risk factors are and how high to weight different things. That's just for me and the decisions that I'm making. And so if it plays out in there, which I expect it probably will, odds are I feel are in my favor, well then great. And maybe I make 3x from here, maybe I make 50x from here, maybe I make 100x from here. Fantastic. I had a lot of money on the line that I could have lost it all, and bam, it worked out for me. And I didn't get a 30% return. I got like a 3x or a 5x or a 10x. Or maybe 100x if I'm lucky. So that's why I'm in crypto. That's why I got completely out of everything else. And I'm like, crypto is my full-time thing, because these kind of gains are tremendous. It does take a lot of patience, takes a lot of willingness to understand how psychologically things happen. So like the whole Red Hulk thing that was addressed, you learn some very, very valuable lesson. I say learned, you might not have learned it,
Yeah.
Because the learning thing is, are you going to keep repeating the mistake? Because we've all made that mistake. I just stopped making it. The mistake of, oh my gosh, everyone's talking about this. Yes, it is pretty cool. Shoot, I better buy it. Well, everyone's mind is on it. It's what's I call in focus, or it's the present narrative. And don't buy things that are in the present narrative. It could go up from here, but your chances in a bear market are that it's going to go down from there. So, what was in the narrative 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago that's really cheap now? That it was a strong narrative that might turn around and do well. That's what I asked. And when Red Hulk is really pumping and people are like, oh, you got to get it, I think, okay, I'm not going to look at Red Hulk. But what else am I forgetting about that was in the narrative that everyone was talking about a while ago? And like maybe Secret Rare Thanos is that. Maybe it's something else. So, like, make good decisions, right? I mean, let's look up Thanos and see where Thanos is at. He's out of the narrative now. So, it's possibly even okay, all the way down to 292. Fantastic. I mean, that is really cheap compared to what it costs to get him. And I've got one edition you can see. And it might be time for me. I'm going to wait a little bit longer and see if it comes down more. And
I'm going to take out this chart now, right? Am I okay to do that?
oh, yeah. Sorry. I forgot
Oh,
to.
you weren't sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot to click to share this different tab. So nobody was seeing
Yeah.
what I was looking at.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
regular Thanos Philosopher is all the way down to 3450. That's pretty good. I think Thanos is a pretty epic character. And there's not a huge number of mints of him of either one. So this is one I like. Maybe it needs a little bit of more time and people forget about it and they dump it. And then I like to pick it up when it's strongly out of the narrative. I made up that term to help people think about it. I call it buying when it's boring because it was the catchiest way I could try to convey on how I think about things so that I can make the most amount of money possible. Now, I don't have a magic wand as to where the bottom will be. I literally just buy something that I think has a really strong narrative when nobody's talking about it. And then I wait till it comes back in the narrative. And so far, over the past 6 years, it's worked out tremendously for me. I'm excited to see how this next bull run goes as further proof, not only for myself, but I only started the YouTube channel at the end of 2020. It'll be really exciting to see how many of my audience members make life-changing gains this cycle. And that will be really exciting for me. And then what will be tremendously exciting is how many people learn to do the right things and then are helping teach others so that the following cycles, those that benefited really well in that first cycle, have like world changing level gains. And then maybe some of their friends and family that finally listen to them have done well.
Yeah.
And I'm just sharing with them how to think like an investor, right? So a solid, unshakable, early stage venture capital investor. That's what you're doing when you're in this space.
Yeah, I love it. So look, I wanted to, you talked about someone that made $1 billion. So there's a couple of people that were just wondering about like who made the billion and is there any proof about that? Do you want to address that?
Yeah, Crypto, his name is Chris from Crypto, and he was a taxi cab driver. And when I was new, so he did the type of analysis that I do back when I was brand new, but he stopped doing that type of analysis and research on videos. Why? He probably just didn't want the exposure and the risk and people saying, oh, well, I bought such and such and blah, blah, blah. So he literally just covers Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price now. And yeah, he's got some videos showing his crazy house in Dubai. And then like 3 months later, another freaking crazy house in Dubai and stuff. And so, yeah, as far as like, he didn't show specific proof that he's a billionaire, but he said it. And I doubt he's lying about that because he's always been really straight up about everything. So he's done really, really well using these types of principles. Now, he was a college dropout that was driving Uber to make extra money, and he started investing in crypto. And after he kind of felt like he had an idea of what was going on, he started releasing videos in 2017 in that bull run. And he would do mountains of research on projects that were launching and doing an ICO launch. And yeah, did really good in the 2017 run. In the 2021 run, he further compounded those gains, which add up to over $1 billion.
So, Bugsy, is it boring? Some things are boring right now, and I think like Omi. It's funny because there was some hype around Omi as it started pumping. They announced the first kind of utility, if you will, by just placing Omi in the app, you were going to get additional master collector points, and not really real utility yet because we can't even use those master collector points. So I'm definitely waiting for that, and that is something that I would love to get additional clarification on. Is it, when is that coming? Right, they've been accruing these master collector points. We've been able to see that for some time. So I don't mind asking hard questions. Hey, when is this coming? You guys have been talking about this. People now moved over, and there was a pump, but now it's kind of died back down. And that's when you start seeing the same people saying, "Oh, yeah, this was just a ploy so that they could sell some Omi and pump it and dump it on their community, and it's just a rug." And yet you have some of the most well-known, recognizable IP in the world attaching themselves to VeVe at the same time, and that just doesn't make sense, right? It's not consistent with what the people who I would say have insider information as they're making the deals and they're planning what they want to do in the future with VeVe, and and they're tying themselves or hitching themselves to VeVe's wagon, and then you have these other people who are saying, well, oh yeah, Omi is just a rug right now. So yeah, I think like Rain said, anything under 001 is boring, and people just aren't interested in the token overall. But there is a solid possibility, in my estimation, and how I'm doing things, is that it will catch a narrative. There's so many different narratives that it could catch. So let's say, no way is a rug. It's so not a rug. Okay, no way it's a rug. It's so not a rug. Yeah, and again, it's the people that they're either just trolling because they're miserable people and they just want to kind of get some sort of attention, right? They need this attention, and they know that that's a way that the VeVe community is so strong that people are going to respond to that, or they're just uneducated. But I mean, this is not the proper use of the term rug in any way, shape, or form. And those are the type of people that I start just ignoring and saying, you know what, like, you're not adding any value to this space. I'm all for people who want to bring up real issues or concerns. I want to listen to those and analyze those. When people start doing that, then I'm just like, it's not even worth paying attention or having you in my feed anymore. This is another thing. I am starting to buy some of these SR comics that I'm just like, they were too high. They they were in a narrative. Sorry, they were in a narrative. So the price had pumped, and I was just like, I'm not buying them at these prices. But now they're getting to these prices where the SR Punisher was at like $600-700, maybe even up to $900 at one point. Now it's down to $245. Right? These are more palatable prices for me. So I want to make sure that I am covering some of the things that we talked about with New York Comic Con. I do believe that they're, first and foremost, man, that party that VeVe is throwing with Funko, and there's going to be so many artists there, and I think that there's some big things, big announcements coming that I'm just really excited to see. And we've already had some. We've already seen this Funko Partnership for the first time. And I think that those people who made that video are going to be shocked at how quickly that Funko Gold sells out. Because they're like, oh, they don't think it's going to sell out. They have no idea how quickly it's going to sell out. I hope that I can get two. I'm trying for two. So we'll see there, but let's see.
It's crazy dialing into the OMI community, right? Because what's funny is VeVe has created more regular comic book collectors than probably any other new thing. And so, like myself, I never had a physical comic until after I had been a VeVe collector, and then I bought a few, and I was just like, this is funny, that literally it's the digital that got me into the physical. And they'll see, like, that's probably what Funko is really interested in. Not only can they make money on the digital, but that it'll increase the physical comics. And OMI has its own community. It will probably get Funko some more hype, but then a lot of these Funko collectors will get exposure to digital comics, and whether they're ready to accept it right away, a few of them will, and a bunch of them won't, until there's green candles. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I bought this golden Funko and now it's up like 30x. And they'll be like, what, 30%? They'll be like, no, 30 times what I paid for it. And they'll just be like, what? Oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden they'll be interested, like, and they'll be throwing in money, you know, what they could have got for $30, and they'll be throwing in $1,500 to buy it and thinking that they're making a smart decision. But that's just how people come into the space. They come in chasing green candles, usually get wrecked, and then the smart ones stick around.
Yeah. So I put up here, Stardust. I want to put a caveat or an asterisk on this comment. When people are putting it down, it means it's time to buy. As long as you've done the research on the company and you believe that it's going to succeed. So there are some projects that the use case can be strong, but if they don't have the marketing, they don't have the team, and they don't have the runway, they don't have the funds. Those are the types of things. So when I see a company like VeVe that is constantly making more money and they're growing, and people are still trash talking them and they're still calling it a rug for all these partnerships and stuff, that for me is when I'm saying, okay, this is the time to buy. Well, for whatever reason, these people continue to. So I don't mind the fudders in general because I'm like, yeah, if you can keep this token low, fine. But I'm also going to try to educate the people who subscribe to my channel and at least bring up these points so that they can make better decisions for themselves and learn to identify the red flags of some of these people who are making these comments and saying, how does this make sense? Like, where's the support for this, or why are you saying this? But so I love that comment, and it does apply, in my opinion, to VeVe. I love Omi as a wagon. Hey, Mark, I thought we weren't talking about Logan anymore there. So I wanted your insight on this, and we're going to wrap this up here in just a few minutes. But any concern with point, and I haven't seen these numbers, so I'll just trust you on this. I'm SoCal does his homework, but any concern with 0.71%, so not even 1% of wallet holders holding 77% of the available token supply. You're on mute, Rain, or something's happening.
Yeah, assuming that that's correct, and that's a big assumption. So we know that Danny and David both have like 30 billion each. So that's two wallets holding a massive amount of the OMI token supply. I don't know that it's that big. I know I have a bunch of OMI, and you know, some people, some whales are really smart and been accumulating not just a little bit, but a lot. I mean, can you imagine how much Doctor of Profit has? And we know at one point, Brock McBlockchain had a number that didn't start with M on how many OMI tokens he was holding. And so is that a concern? I'm not too concerned by that when they're in responsible hands that aren't dumpers. So I think these people holding them are long-term believers. And yes, they'll take profits, but I don't mind the tokens being in the hands of sophisticated people with such a high supply. I don't like it if they're in the hands of like the founders who are looking to cash out as soon as they can. Like David and Dan have had their tokens unlocked to them for a long time, so they could have cashed those out at any point, and they haven't been. So I like to see that type of behavior from the team. And so I do get concerned when it's like the team and they have like such a huge percent of the tokens, and then usually when those get unlocked, they get dumped on everyone, and that isn't what happened. So I'm not too concerned, even if that is the case. Sure, could somebody temporarily wreck things? When you see the bull market, like if you haven't experienced it from the beginning, there will be so much money that flows into the space that even one person holding 50 billion tokens, all they'll be able to do is slow it down for a while, but they won't be able to stop what's happening.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I love that point about being in sophisticated hands. Now, we do know, right, that there is Ben Gidenzi, who I don't know how many tokens he has, but he has a substantial amount, right? And so right now, when liquidity is low, he can affect the market price. But like rate, so it depends on what your vision is for when you believe the token can do well. Because in the short term, yes, Ben may be able to, or someone like Ben who has a lot of tokens may be able to impact the price pretty drastically when there's not a lot of liquidity. But once that bull run hits, and if VeVe gets on or OMI gets on some major exchanges, right, and that daily volume is like 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, right, dollars a day, right, like it gobbles it up. It gobbles it up. So is there a risk? Absolutely, there's a risk. And that's the one thing that I need to make sure that I constantly talk about is, yes, crypto is risky. But we also try to bring up like some of the mitigating or the things that are mitigating some of that risk, but there's still risk there. So that is something there. And we have seen projects where the founders dump on the community, they bounce and they made it rich, right? But I'm looking at David has an established physical business. He's been in business for a long time. He has a reputation. People know who he is and where to find him. Those are the types of things that mitigate. It doesn't 100% mitigate, but it does mitigate substantially the risk that he's just going to peace out right on people. This is something that he loves and he's been doing his entire life. So, yeah.
I wanted to add a point to that. A lot of people come into crypto and they don't really understand what's going on with it. So what is crypto like? What are these tokens? Historically, when you were a company that wanted to raise money because you had an idea, the only way that you could do that was sell off part of your company, or you could borrow funds and promise some kind of rate. Hey, I'll pay you 10% on your money, et cetera, et cetera. But basically those two ways. Okay, I'll sell you a percentage of the company or this. So this third way has come around. This like, well, we'll create a crypto token. Now realize that in essence, crypto tokens can be worthless. In fact, 70% of the crypto space, I would say those tokens are worthless. Has to do with what kind of utility do those tokens have? Because tell me why they're not worthless. And so there has become like use cases for the tokens as an effort to try to give them utility. Like ETH, its use case is, well, you got to use it in order to do transactions on the network. It's used for gas, as well as it's kind of a store of value or like a money. And you know what? That's played out really well in Bitcoin. Again, you have to use Bitcoin to pay the gas with, and it's the store of value is gold. So when a company like Ecomi, and I was an early investor in their pre-sale, and Ecomi, like the pitch that they made was, well, this token will have some use cases. We're not selling equity in our company. We're selling this token. Now, a lot of people complain that, oh my gosh, there's no use case. This use case hasn't been effective. And what's true is we finally just seen the first instance of the use case. But what I have seen, which is interesting, is when a company's narrative pumps, even if the token related to it has no specific use, the token pumps too with the narrative of the company. And so there's some I've seen where I'm like, the token has no use case, but it just went 50x just because they were talking about the company and everyone's excited for what the company does. Well, that's interesting. And yes, that's non-rational behavior, but yeah, that's still what happens because a lot of people in the crypto space don't really know what they're doing at all. And so even if their token did nothing, that wouldn't stop it from pumping as the crypto market takes off and people start getting really excited about these VeVe collectibles. The OMI token would pump anyway. I like that they're nailing down some specific use cases because that will augment what it can do in a bull market. With you have to hold a certain amount, it gives you master collector points, and say you have to use them to buy bronze tickets, and then they burn some of the OMI used to buy bronze tickets, and all this stuff is cool, and it gives utility to this token, which is what they used to raise the money to really get this whole thing started. So realize that in the end, holding tokens, we don't hold any guarantees. It's risky. It's definitely speculative. Yet as the crypto bull markets come, new money pours into this whole idea, and generally a lot of these tokens massively pump. And so those are the bets that I take. I take them as try to get as informed as I can and take good bets. And for me, OMI is one of my favorites for this bull market.
I love it. I appreciate those thoughts, Rain. And I just kind of want to end on, recapture everything that we talked about. I am excited about what's happening with VeVe at New York Comic Con, that they're sharing a booth with Marvel, that they continue to announce these partnerships, and we'll probably hear even more things happening in the next week and a half of the things that they are building. I'm not worried right now about vault values because I'm thinking of a longer term perspective. So when you get these fudders who are trashing on VeVe community because they're like, oh, I made all of this money on these things, ask them how their Mutant 8 Yacht Club is doing right now, those profile pics, and how they're down like 47% from where at least one of them bought. You can track that all on chain, so they can sit there and pretend that they know what they're doing because they made one great play. This is the bear market and everything is down. And for me, I think that longer term, not everything in the VeVe collectibles are going to do well long term. Some of those are just collectibles, and that's okay. But some of them do have potential significant importance in the history of the blockchain story. And so I'm definitely looking into those things. The OMI price, again, I'm not so worried about the OMI price. It's boring right now. And for me, I'm trying to buy more and more OMI. But I am also trying to diversify. So I'm a little different than Rain in that Rain is all in crypto. I still have a stock portfolio and some of the traditional finance. I'm still in that world because I like that. To me, is a hedge against the volatility of crypto, where if everything still goes to zero for crypto, I still have investments that are still making me 8-10% a year that I'm putting that away, right? So for me, that's the risk threshold that I'm at. I love going into this crypto space. I do think that it has the potential for a lot quicker wealth accumulation, but just in case for whatever reason my theses are wrong, that I still have that. But I'm not too worried overall about where OMI is going in the short term, so I don't pay attention to those things. And then the last thing, I just want to shout out the community, the people who are here. I love that. I love that you guys are continuing. You are the people who are humble enough to continue to educate yourself and say, hey, what can I learn here? And you're constantly listening to people like Sleeping Comics, who have built these businesses, to Crypto Rain, myself with the background in financial analysis. I at least get to offer you different viewpoints on those type of things. So definitely appreciate the support. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, push, gently caress that like button. I just love to grow this channel. And here's some alpha for you guys. And I'm not going to say who, but I have a very, very, very big person coming on the channel in the next couple weeks here, trying to figure out the exact time as when that's happening. But really excited to have that happen. And I know that you guys will be very excited of who I have on that. So that's the first time I've really said anything publicly. So as it gets a little bit closer, we'll be able to nail down that time and get you guys more involved with that. So thanks everyone for watching. Rain, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for constantly being willing to educate people in this space so that they can hopefully make better informed decisions about what to do in the crypto space. So thank you everyone. And thank you, Rain.
Yeah, sure thing. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us.